Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for your time today. I'm Alan O'Neill. I'm Head of Communications at CSCS. And presenting with me today is Andy Reeks. Andy's day job is with the card scheme ECS, but Andy is also chair of the working group that has been leading the development of this new app. With Andy and myself today, we have Ewan Welsh from StableLogic. StableLogic were brought in as management consultants to help run the delivery of the app. And also with us today, we have Matthew Rogerson from CSCS. Matthew is producing today's event, and Matthew will lead on the Q&A section when we get to that within the webinar. Okay, so before jumping into the presentation itself, I just wanted to share with you a few facts about the app. In our previous webinar, the chat facility, it was really busy, but what we noticed is that people were asking the same questions. So on this slide, we do have 7 points, and those are those questions that kept reoccurring during the last webinar. And I'd like just to take a few moments to run through these points, and then hopefully that just makes a bit more room for new questions coming through on the chat facility. But as the very first bullet point, just want to address the app is called the CSCS Smart Check. That's the name of the app. And there are a lot of questions about what it costs to use, what it costs to download. The app is absolutely free to download, and it's absolutely free to use. It's a really important point, but this app is for those who are responsible for checking cards on site. So we're talking about those site management teams who check the cards as they come through the site gates. There are other apps out there for individuals. So you have individuals who have got the likes of My CSCS or My ECS, where they can store electronic versions of their individual card. And those apps are separate from CSCS Smart Check. This is for those responsible for checking cards on site. The app is available for all cards displaying the CSCS logo. It doesn't matter if that card does not have any existing technology in it today. There's a functionality within the app that allows you to manually check a card. So you will select manual and you will be able to punch in a few details and get the card verified that way as well. So all cards, whether technology contained within them or not, will be compatible with the app. The app does not store information about the card or the card holder. It simply checks that the card is valid and displays the information printed on the card. It's available from the 1st of April. It's available on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, and once again, it will be free to use. The vast majority of card schemes displaying the logo will be compatible with the app from the 1st of April. But down at the bottom there's a handful of card schemes that probably represents 10% of the 2.1 million cards out there. It will just take a few more weeks before those cards are on board and they're available on the new app. So it's just a matter of weeks to wait before every scheme becomes available on the app. So jumping back into the main parts of the presentation itself, I want to focus now on some of the background that's got us to the point where we have to develop this app. I also just want to focus now on the value of checking cards thoroughly. I'm assuming because we're all on this webinar, we've all had plenty of experience with using cards displaying the CSCS logo. Therefore, we all recognise the importance of a fully qualified workforce, because an unqualified workforce is an unsafe workforce that ultimately leads to a lowering of standards, safety and productivity on site. The most effective way of ensuring the workforce are qualified and cards are genuine is by carrying out checks using smart technology. Now, this is something many of the card schemes have been promoting for a number of years now. But speaking on behalf of all 38 card schemes, we've never really reached the point where we can confidently say that smart technology is standard practice across the whole industry for checking cards. And the reason for not being able to reach that particular goal, that particular objective, is that we, the card schemes, over a number of years, we have inadvertently placed barriers that prevent employers from adopting 100% card checks using smart technology. And those barriers, they really boil down to the fact that there are numerous technologies and there's numerous processes available to check cards. I just want to go through some of the high level numbers around the 38 card schemes displaying the CSCS logo. 20 of those schemes do have smart technology platforms in place. You're able to check those cards using near field communication, contactless, by reading QR codes or even virtual electronic versions of the cards. So those platforms, they all have their benefits, they all have their place, but the issue is the majority of them are incompatible with one another. So therefore, we have inadvertently introduced this layer of complexity at the site gates, where there is an expectation in place that site managers fully understand the various different platforms out there, and they know which platforms are for which cards. Then there's another layer of complexity that's introduced, which is we have a number of schemes. There's about 10 card schemes who rely on online databases, websites. So you log on to those databases, those websites, you punch in a few details on the card and you verify the card's details that way. Again, many of those sites are incompatible with one another, and there's an expectation that site management teams understand those different websites. And finally, we're left with a handful of schemes, probably about 8 schemes or so, who have no technology currently in place on their card. So you rely on picking up the phone, phoning through to that card scheme's office to verify the details on the card. So this complexity, it does lead to confusion at the site gates, and ultimately it leads to some poor card checking practices, because what happens is on some sites they decide to adopt visual inspections, and they adopt those visual inspections because they just don't know which app they should be using to check the card that's presented to them. They don't know what piece of software they need to download, what website they need to be logging on to, or which process to follow. And when you start to adopt visual inspections on your site, you are introducing unnecessary risk to that site. A quick visual inspection is not going to tell you that you're holding a fake piece of plastic in your hand. A visual inspection is not going to tell you that potentially the qualification in order to obtain that card was achieved fraudulently. Quick visual inspections, you're likely to miss the expiry date on the front of the card, and you're likely to miss the qualifications displayed on the reverse of the card. So we do have a confused picture at the site gates. And this visual here is really highlights that complexity. Here are the 38 card schemes. They're all independently run organizations, all using different technologies and different processes in order to verify the details on their card. I need to hold my hands up here. I've been at CSCS for 7 years, and I cannot tell you off the top of my head what every one of these schemes uses in order to check their cards. I have a table, I can reference that table and I can find out quite quickly that way, but I think it's an unrealistic expectation to expect a site manager to be cross-referencing a table every time a different card appears on site, so they know which process to follow. So, in recognition of this complexity, in recognition of the issues that this complexity causes at the site gates, the Construction Leadership Council, the CLC, they have set the 38 card schemes a challenge. And that was first announced back in late 2020, when the CLC announced, and I quote, by 31st of March 22, all card schemes must use smart technology, which has the capability to electronically check agreed information relevant to a cardholder using a common interface without the need to manually enter data. Now that's quite a mouthful. There's a lot of words in there, but when you boil all that down, effectively all the CLC are saying is it doesn't matter what card turns up on site. We want to see a system in place, a common interface in place that allows you to verify the details on that card. And the aim of all of that, well, ultimately, it's to increase the use of technology to check cards thoroughly. As I've mentioned earlier, we, the card schemes, we've probably taken smart technology as far as we can. We've introduced so many competing platforms that we're struggling to get that wider coverage. The introduction of this app, it does provide a fantastic opportunity to rapidly spread the use of smart technology to check cards across the industry. The app, it will also make life easier for employers. It will make it easier to ensure that all cards are genuine and that all cards are in date. And again, it will make life easier for employers because it will make it easier to ensure that workers hold the appropriate training and qualifications for the job that they do on site. And when all of that is delivered successfully, what do we end up with? Well, what we should end up with is improved standards, improved productivity, and improved safety on site. So that brings you to an end of my introduction. I hope that sort of gives you a bit of background to the issues that are out there today, to the complexity that is out there today, and to the challenge that has been set by the CLC. So I'm now going to hand you over to Andy. Andy is chair of the working group that's been leading the development of the app, and Andy will take you through where the working group has got to. So over to you, Andy.
Thanks very much, Alan, and good afternoon, everybody. As Alan said, I was chairing the delivery group, which was the working group from those 38 partner schemes, which came together to look at how this should be done, how the app should run, how to make it as simple and effective as possible. So as you see on the screen there were 6 schemes that were represented in the working group, myself from ECS, ADSA, ALMI, EU Skills, IPAF and NFDC, and the idea being that there were 6 schemes of different sizes covering different occupations and areas that use different technologies. Some had no smart technology at all, some virtual cards, some contactless, and that gave us necessary differing perspectives to look at how we could achieve something collaboratively, and really is I think certainly something that's quite groundbreaking to get 38 different organizations together with a shared common goal. So we started that process very late March last year, initially undertaking an investigation and benchmarking of the 38 schemes, what they did currently, the various types of smart technology that were in place, how they interacted. As Alan said, some it was only possible to check via a phone call to an office, some have their own apps, some were online checks, etc. So running through that, each scheme has the choice to develop their own technology and their own systems, and we wanted something that produced minimal change. So we looked at the options. An app was the natural solution, that something that could read across, that was low cost, that was easy to use, and went through a supplier selection in August 2021. Been developing since then, and linking that app up to the 38 different databases and that 2.1 million card holders collectively. So those key principles were produce something that is low cost, and ultimately we wanted something that was free to access for the industry. That meant there was minimal or no change for the existing card schemes. So again, as Alan said, number of apps already out there, number of smart cards already out there. There was no need to change the landscape. We just need one way of reading all of those different technologies, keep it as simple as possible, and ensure that it's obviously compliant with data protection legislation, but also with each of those 38 organizations, they need to I suppose, meet a principle of data sovereignty, so that each scheme is responsible for their cardholders, and that's managed in an appropriate way. So, as Alan's already said, the app will be free to access, free to use, free to download. It will require an internet connection, though. Reason being that this is all done in real time. I'll come on to that in the next slide. Also, just a note that is initially a standalone system, so it can read cards from all of those 38 schemes. However, there are some existing systems out there that have access to some databases, and this is normally access control systems on some of the larger sites. So public infrastructure, for example, they will not currently be compatible with this app, with these databases, although we are looking to transition over time those systems into to these database options. So that will be something that is rolled out, and as we already covered, the app will launch in April. Probably 80-90% of all card holders will be readable at that point in time. There will be a few schemes, though, that are onboarded over April into early May. Next slide, please. So the app does require internet connection, reason being that it is all done in real time. So the app will verify the card that's provided, whether it's physical card, whether it's smart card, whether it's a QR code, whether it's a virtual card, whether you're manual inputting data, and it fires off into those 38 databases. The benefit of doing all of that in real time, of course, is that you get the most up-to-date record for that individual. So if they've updated qualifications, if they've undertaken CPD, if they've upgraded, whatever it may be, that will be live. At the same time, if there are issues of fraud or cards have been revoked for whatever reason, the same will be true. It will display the latest correct information. That does mean, unfortunately, for those areas where either internet connection is not possible, or smart technology is not available, sites might need to look at their current processes. But we were looking at something that covers the vast majority of projects, of sites, of contracts. So looking at that kind of 95% or so. And in terms of what happens at the gate, as I say, if an individual is displaying a contactless card, and go into the app, and you have three options. First is contactless, and it is simply tapping the card on the back of your smartphone, top of the smartphone, to confirm the data. As shown on the right hand side, valid and verified cards will display the picture of the individual, the scheme that they're with, the registration number, card type, expiry dates, qualifications held. Same true for QR code. So again, open the app, select QR code. That could be a printed QR code on the card. It could be a QR code within a virtual app. Again, simply scan that. If it's valid, same information returns. There's a manual entry, which is partly as a backup in case, say, a printed QR code has started to wear off in somebody's wallet or pocket over time, as happens. Then you can still enter those details, or if a chip is damaged, for example. There are also a number of schemes that don't have smart technology yet, and therefore the option for them is a manual entry. And in the guidance, we'll be setting out which schemes don't have that smart technology. Ultimately, if the card has a chip, if it has that contactless sign, it's a contactless card. If it has a QR code, it's a QR code read. Otherwise, it's going to be a manual entry. There's also a support and help section within the app, so both for failed reads and if you need further contact support or to report instances of fraudulent activity, then you can do so through the app. As we said, this is a period of transition. We're running these webinars. We're developing a lot of the comms to encourage people to take this up from April, but we are expecting to be a migration over time as this picks up and as other systems are potentially integrated as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of that timeline, we've been undertaking quite a rigorous development and testing process since January, and we've had quite a number of the schemes live in the background since mid-February, so that we know the vast majority are working, and we had a number of early adopters, both in terms of the card schemes themselves that put themselves forward for that, and some main contractors, some large clients, some SMEs who were willing to help test that out, and that'll be ongoing through to April and beyond as well. So there we've got the timeline in terms of that go live date, the testing, what we're doing for comms, but April isn't an end point for us. We'll be looking at the rollout, looking at tweaks, updates that might be necessary if there are any bugs for whatever reason. When you're dealing with 38 APIs, 38 system links into 38 different databases, there's obviously potential for things to go wrong occasionally. So we want to make sure that that's as smooth as possible, that we're giving the right information back, particularly if it's not been possible to verify a card for whatever reason. And certainly to start with, we're not expecting clients, sites, contractors to change their policies around what they do and those processes they already have in place. But this is a far smarter, quicker solution for that. And over time, we'll expect procurement details to be updated accordingly. Next slide, please, Adam. Okay. So yeah, just in terms of a recap, yeah, the app is called CSCS Smart Check. Will be free to access. It's about verifying cards. So this is not a solution to store individuals' card details. That those already exist. So within my CSCS, within my ECS, a Smart Power for iPath, for example, that is the individual's log. That is their system, their logbooks, their smart technology for plant access or whatever it may be. Those already exist. This is a way of verifying those virtual cards, those smart cards, as being valid and genuine. There will be a number of schemes that do not have smart technology to begin with. Again, we'll highlight those that need to be used via manual entry. But again, it's a very quick process. It's card registration number and surname. So it's the information that's on the card, and we're expecting an almost immediate response from all of those schemes. Will be available from 1st of April, and there are just over 10 schemes there that will be onboarded during April and into early May. The other point that I would make, given some of the questions that come up, is yes, it does read all 38 schemes. So a couple of people asking, will MPAWS cards be read, or GQA cards, or CSCS cards, or whatever? Yes, it is about all 38 partner schemes of CSCS being readable and verifiable in one place. Thank you, Alan.
Hey, thank you, Andy. We're now on our final slide before we get into the Q&A section of today's webinar. And here I just want to take a quick look at what it is we're doing to promote and support the app. We have a strategy in place that really falls into two parts. The first part of that strategy is everything that's happening now to promote the rollout of the app. So hopefully you should all have been receiving regular bulletins. We've been issuing bulletins to the industry since December, and we've been issuing them roughly about once a month, and we will continue to keep pushing out those bulletins to inform you with how the app is getting on and the rollout is getting on. Hopefully, again, you will see that we have been working with the media. There's a number of articles out there now and promoting the app, and we are advertising on some of the larger media platforms. So the likes of Construction Inquirer and Construction Management, you will see that we've got some prominent adverts on their websites. There's a lot of work taking place to prepare supporting materials for the industry, and the aim of those supporting materials is to help the industry get to grips with the app's functionality. And one of the key deliverables there is we're preparing a suite of explainer videos. They're short, animated 2-minute videos that just take you through the key functionalities of the app. As Andy was saying, you can read the app manually using manual. You can do it via QR code. You can use the app to read a card via contact. There's a video for each of those different options. And I say they're short 2-minute videos, and we'll be making those available out to the industry. Hopefully most of them will be available before we get to the 1st of April. So that will give you a feel for how simple the app is to use. But what's absolutely central to this part of the strategy, getting us ready for the 1st of April, is this program of direct engagement. It's delivering these webinars. This is our second webinar. They've been very well attended. The next one is next week, and there'll be another one before we get to the 1st of April. So there's 4 webinars in total. We are very happy to hear what the industry says about these webinars. If the industry feels as though we should continue these webinars after the 1st of April, again, we are very happy to do that. The next part of the strategy really takes us after beyond the 1st of April. As Andy says, this is a rollout. It's not a big bang approach. There is a period of transition that is required before the app gets fully integrated into the industry. So that means the communications and the promotions, it needs to continue until all those existing systems are tied into this new app. And I guess it's really only then that we can start to look at the possibility of smart checks being standard practice across the industry. So really, just to finish off, absolute priorities right now are preparing the industry for the 1st of April. We're going to ramp up our promotions that we've been doing over the last 2-3 months, and we're going to focus on doing all that we can to ensure the industry is aware that this app is coming. We have got all those supporting materials that I was talking about, like those videos. We need to get all that finished and get all that issued to the industry. And again, the majority of those supporting materials will be made available in advance of the app being rolled out. In terms of messaging, it comes back to what we're saying about it is initially a standalone product. It requires that period of transition, but during that period of transition, we will continue to promote and we will continue to encourage the industry to use the app.